got mail.
Imagine checking your inbox one morning and finding this message.
Congratulations. You have been randomly selected to participate in a 3-day excursion into outer space. The federal government is funding a social experiment to demonstrate the efficacy of the overview effect on civilian astronauts. This program will generate data relevant to our national security. Your urgent response is required.
What do you think, partner? Would you do it? Of course, right? But still, you might have some questions. For one, what in the heck is the overview effect? Two, what does it have to do with our national security? And three,
why would the government spend billions of dollars sending ordinary citizens up to space? Doesn't that sound like a phenomenal waste of taxpayer money? Well, what does the government do best, partner?
So I want to talk today about the overview effect, why it's important, and why the government may in fact want to send people like you and I up to space. Yeah, I gotta fix that. It's not gonna work. Yeah. Here's a speculative claim. Astronauts are exceptional people. You might think, okay, well that sounds fairly reasonable. After all, the psychological and intellectual and emotional and physical demands of that particular vocation probably select for the best and brightest among us, right? Exceptional people go to space. And while that's probably true, right, what if we flipped that equation around and asked, well, what if space makes people exceptional? I mean, what if space is like a cosmic classroom that is instructive about the ways of the world, as the School of Hard Knocks is instructive about the ways of the streets? And if you talk to some astronauts, they'll tell you that going up to space wasn't just really, really cool when they were up there, but that it also made them better people, right? It changed the way that they think. And to get an intuition for how that's even possible, I think we should get our feet off of the ground and our head up in the clouds. So one day I was getting in my car to drive to the airport, and a few buildings down, there's this empty lot, and it's slated for a big construction project. And as I'm passing by, I remember thinking, gee, I wonder if all of the noise is going to affect my filming schedule. And further down the road, I pass by a gas station, and I think to myself, gee, I wonder why gas prices suddenly jumped. And as I'm on the freeway, I see all of these homeless tents on the median, right? And I think to myself, gee, I wonder how many of those people lost their homes during the pandemic. So these are all reasonable thoughts, right? Given the focus of my vision. Now, finally, I get up into the airplane and I look out the window from cruising altitude, and what thoughts do I have? I remember thinking things like,
gee, I wonder how that mountain range formed. And wow, from up here, the river system really looks like the arteries and veins embedded in the skin of the earth. And as I flew over Palm Springs, I remember thinking, gee, I wonder if it was such a good idea to plant all this grass in the middle of the desert.
Right? So maybe that'll be fine, but the point is that the focus of our thoughts follow the focus of our vision, right? So following that logic, if we go and get new points of view, shouldn't that open up access to new thoughts to us, right? And isn't that why they say that traveling is the best form of education? And that begs the question, what do we think about if we go up even further? Author Frank White was on a cross-country plane trip when he had a deep thought. How would future space settlers, say on the moon, how would they be affected by their unique vantage point of the Earth? And this question led him to spend his life interviewing the few people really qualified to comment, astronauts. And what he found led him to a tantalizing hypothesis that seeing the Earth from space leads to a subtle yet undeniable change in one's worldview, right? A cognitive shift where individuals are left with a feeling of awe, a profound understanding of the interconnection of all life, and a renewed sense of responsibility for taking care of the environment. And the book he wrote is named after the term he coined for this experience, the overview effect. So, spoiler alert, this book is positively gushing, with accounts of giddy astronauts that sound like they've just gotten off a magic carpet ride with Aladdin,
talking about how beautiful and splendiferous the Earth is, and how the mere sight reduced them to tears, and how they wish that everyone on Earth could just come up there and have that same experience, because that would probably usher in a new global era of peace, love, and understanding.
Right? That sounds like a mind trip, right? That sounds at least 3 times better than being stoned on the It's a Small World ride at Disneyland. But, okay, the feeling of awe is understandable, right? Waxing poetic about a beautiful vision is nothing new. But what about all the cognitive shift stuff? How does that work? So the first major claim of the overview effect is that it leaves us with a profound understanding of the interconnection of all life. And although you and I would probably get that correct on a multiple choice exam, we've never really had an emotional or personal experience to really access that information on a day-to-day basis. It's just too abstract. Astronauts, on the other hand, seem to encode that information on a deeper level while Earth-gazing. I mean, from up in space, you can see the whole system, right, working together, like a meteorological ballet.
Storms, hurricanes moving across oceans. You can see lightning displays that look like the neurons of a global brain firing. You can see the effects of floods, and you can see debris from fires
and dust storms moving across entire continents. Many of the astronauts say that the Earth has so many colors and patterns and textures that are so intricate and so dynamic that it appears as if it's a living, breathing entity. So let's think about that, right? If we begin to conceptualize the Earth as being alive in some sense, does that unlock some new capacity to feel compassion for it? Like one might a new puppy. And knowing that we are all part of that connected system, does that make us feel more connected?
I don't know about you, partner, but a lot of the time I feel totally disconnected from the world. You know, my good friends and family are scattered all over the place, and social media feels like a sadistic joke. So wouldn't it be nice if I had some sort of emotional experience, right, locked away in my memory bank that could remind me that I am still an active participant in the social fabric of life?
So what implications does the overview effect have for those of us that feel isolated in modern society? Would that give us a renewed sense of purpose? And if we felt like a bigger part of that system, would we do more to protect it? So, Frank's second major claim is that the overview effect gives us a renewed sense of responsibility for taking care of the environment. And we have some supporting evidence for that in our history of spaceflight. In 1968, the 3 Astronauts of the Apollo 8 mission were the first 3 to leave Earth's orbit, go to the moon, and come back. And although the goal was really to beat the Soviets in the space race, and maybe to take some pictures of the moon's surface for future landing sites, when the crew got all the way out there, they had a surprising revelation. Right? The most interesting thing out in space was not the surface of the moon, but it was the Earth from the moon's surface. And a single photograph called Earthrise came back and became world famous because it sent a powerful message to the people on Earth.
The vast loneliness up here on the moon is awe-inspiring, and it makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth. The Earth from here is a grand oasis in the big vastness of space.
And many space advocates credit this image and the Apollo missions for really igniting the environmental movement that was happening at the same time, and leading to things like Earth Day and the passage of the National Environmental Policy Act, and establishing organizations like the EPA. So that's pretty cool, right? But maybe a handful of photographs wasn't enough, because the prospect of irreversible climate change looms larger than ever before as an existential threat to all of humanity. So how do we create a more durable culture of conservation and sustainability? Right? How do we convince entire industries and diverse populations all over the globe to radically change their behavior? That is a big problem, and it's a national security threat for all countries. So maybe we need to start having some big ideas. Maybe we should explore Frank's hypothesis and send up people into space, starting with our policymakers, right, and industry titans and world leaders. And maybe if they can go up there and come up with a reasonable plan to move forward, maybe they can convince us when they come back down to Earth. I'm going to space. I don't care what it costs. What's that? Devil's advocate?
You think that me and all the other bleeding heart artists can fantasize all we want about opening space up to the general public, but the cold, hard truth of the matter is that space is not practical?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, even with our budding space tourism industry being led by these juggernauts like SpaceX and Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic and their billionaire founders funneling all this money into those projects, Sir Richard Branson still says that a trip on Virgin Galactic is going to cost about $250,000. So, just like always, only the super rich are going to be able to afford to have this amazing experience. But if you think about it, maybe that's not such a bad idea. After all, if billionaires go up to space and have this spiritual awakening, where they feel more connected to the Earth and a greater responsibility for protecting it, and they divert just a fraction of their vast wealth into humanitarian causes, win-win, am I right? And heck, maybe even one or two of them will come back down and send people like you and I, right? Artists, filmmakers, writers, musicians up to space so we can have the experience and come back down and share it with our peeps. And if you think, yeah, right, a billionaire is never going to pay for me to go up into space, then you haven't heard of the Dear Moon Project.
My name is Yusak Maezawa. You can call me MZ, please. I choose to go to the moon with artists. With artists. And I wished very much that such artists could go to space, see the moon up close, and the Earth in full view, and create works that reflect their experience. This is a project that I designed and named Dear Moon. Yeah.
Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, partner, maybe scaling up our rocket technology and trying to send as many people up into space as possible isn't such a good idea. After all, burning buttloads of jet fuel can't be very good for the environment. So we don't want to be counterproductive here. What other technologies do we have available to us? Well, how about virtual reality, right? As VR headsets get cheaper and lighter and more accessible and more immersive, can't we create a watered-down version of the overview experience by simulating it? Say with a headset and a flotation tank. Well, guess what? There's already a company doing just that. So people are really excited about this idea. We just need it to spread even further. We need it to go viral. And if it did, we wouldn't need the government to sponsor us to go up to space. So maybe this experience will be available to us in one form or another in our lifetime. And if so, would that bring us closer together as a species? If nothing else, it makes for a really good story. Partner, I have spent weeks now reading astronaut testimonials and kind of earth-gazing from the comfort of my computer. And I'm starting to wonder if these stories about men and women ascending from the plane of the Earth and achieving this new level of self-awareness represent a kind of modern secular myth where the astronaut is like a modern-day Buddha, right, who achieves enlightenment and then spends their life trying to show others how to do the same. And like all myths, maybe it is a little embellished, or maybe it will get embellished over time. Maybe the overview effect isn't as durable or as reliable as we might hope. And there's not a lot of data, and it's hard to test. But maybe that doesn't really matter if it inspires us to become better people. It's definitely got me thinking about the big questions that we all ask ourselves. Who are we? Why are we here? And what do we want? Now, from the ground, we all are stuck in our own little worlds that only extend as far as we can see, right? So the answers are different. We can't agree on them. And not only that, but most of us don't even believe it's possible to agree, right? They think we're too different, and we're too diverse, and we're too selfish for us to ever establish a culture of altruism and global cooperation. And frankly, I don't blame them, because they haven't heard a compelling story to convince them otherwise. But look, this is that story. The astronauts, right, who all of us agree are heroes of society, have told us, look, there is a place. It's up here. We can all go there. And being there and seeing the vision of a single united Earth has the power to unite us by bringing our worldviews into alignment. Right? And from that universal perspective, the answers to those big questions are really clear. Who are we? We're a family. Why are we here? The Earth is our home. And what do we want? We want to make the best of it. We want to feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. So if you believe in the power of beauty to change our hearts and the power of truth to set our minds free, then you already believe in the overview effect, partner. Which means you should assert your power to share stories of hope like this one to the people in your world. Because I want to go to space. And I'm pretty sure everybody else does too. So if you like this film, leave me a message in the comments saying, I want to go to space. And I'll see you next time on The Joy of Thinking.
Come on,